Joining us today on the Ellis Martin Report and Money Talk Radio is Peter Espig, President and CEO of Nicola Mining, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange as NIM and on the OTCQB in the U.S. as HUSIF. A former Goldman Sachs and Olympus Capital executive with an MBA from Columbia, Peter has overseen more than $1 billion in financing deals and has led Nicola Mining since 2013, restructuring it into one of the very few juniors with both strong cash flow and significant exploration upside. Nicola operates the fully permitted Merritt Mill in British Columbia, advancing its Dominion Gold project, Craigmont copper property, and Treasure Mountain silver asset, positioning itself as a standout among junior miners. Peter, welcome to the program. It's great to visit with you today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For listeners new to Nicola, how do you define the company? Are you a junior explorer, a cash-flowing operator, or something in between? I think you're all things, but let's hear what you have to say.
We're all the above. So if I talk in financial terms, we're a junior company that gives investors all the upside of exploration plays in these great exploration regions that is hedged by cash flow on the downside. And it's a great hedge because our operations bring in the cash flow that kind of mitigate us having to continually dilute shareholders and raising money to keep the lights on. So we've got very strong cash flow as a base, and we have the blue sky upside of exploration.
Let's talk about the Merritt Mill and the near-term cash flow and the fact that you're the big mill in the area in that part of BC. You're now ramping up to 200 tons per day with ore from Talisker's Braylorn project, Blue Lagoon's Dome Mountain, they're a sponsor of this program, and Dominion Creek. How close are you to full capacity? And what do those 15 to 18% milling margins mean for your bottom line this year?
Great question. I'll break it down into simple segments. I'll start with a bit of background. We're not the mill in the region. Nicola Mining has a right to accept and process gold and silver mill feed from anywhere in the province of British Columbia, subject to notifying the Ministry of Mining 10 days ahead. We're the only mill in British Columbia permitted to receive material from anywhere in the province of British Columbia. And most of the contracts that we have were actually introduced by the Ministry of Mining. So we're like the de facto small project site in the province. When it comes to the 200 ton a day mill, so that's not large. We're actually looking towards a permanent amendment to double our capacity. But as of today, we're near full capacity. With Blue Lagoon, we expect to come on mid-October. And Dominion, which is our own project, which is one of the highest grade gold projects in British Columbia. Because we own it, we can put it through at any time when we're not getting the material from Talisker or Blue Lagoon. But we're there and we're moving towards 100% capacity. The 15 to 18% bottom line is, if we look at the revenues, that is what the bottom line of operating profit is to Nicola Mining. Towards the end of 2025, we're looking at somewhere between, and I know it's a big range because simple delays with our partners of 30 days when you're in September already significantly affects the bottom line of 2025. But by the end of 2025, we're expecting to have revenues of somewhere between 25 to 50 million. Now, that jumps to over $100 million next year in 2026, right? Because by 2026, everybody will be in full production. And so by then, based on our current capacity, based on the expected production of either Talisker or Blue Lagoon and our throughput of Dominion. And we are looking at other bulk samples as well. And we're also looking at other acquisitions. So in 2026 full year, we expect to have revenues of north of $100 million Canadian.
That's amazing for a junior in the mining space. You're one of the probably 1 to 5% of the junior mining companies that are actually successful and providing value to shareholders, potentially anyway.
Look, I'm a numbers guy, right? The stat is that 1.8% of listed mining companies have any form of revenue. And so we're certainly one of the 1.8%. That said, there are a lot of mining companies that are, and I don't say mining is used very loosely, right? Because most mining companies are actually exploration companies. And so they call themselves mining companies, but they're exploration. And some of them add value to shareholders. I think a difference here is that we're stable. We've mitigated the risk. It's been a lot of work. I can't emphasize how hard we've worked to get to this point. This is years in the making. I've been the CEO of Nicola Mining since 2013. and we took over a company that was distressed. I put in $5 million of my own hard capital. Our chairman and his family have put in close to $12 million. We're a group that's put its money in believing in its ability to make something successful. And to be honest, I didn't expect it to take this long. Had I known it would take this long, I may not have done it. But the reality is we're here. And one of the things that we don't talk about a lot is the fact that once we have our cash flow, ultimately, there are a lot of junior mining companies that continue to struggle to raise capital, and they're great acquisition targets for us. Except the one thing that I'll be clear about for Nicola as an acquisition target is we need to be sure that they're able to go into cash flow, that we'll be able to get a bulk sample permit within 24 months. Otherwise, we're not interested. We're not focused on being an explorer. We're focused on being a cash flowing entity.
So I guess that's part of what you're going to do with that $100 million a year. You're on the road potentially to being a mid-tier company at some point.
Yeah, and remember that the 100 million is based on not getting an amendment to increase our throughput production. If we get our amendment to double our production, we're closer to $250 million. There's a lot going on. There's a lot gotten us here, and there's going to be a lot happening to take us forward. I feel pretty comfortable at $2,800 gold US that will continue to generate $100 million of revenues. We also own a silver mine. When I took over the role of CEO in 2013, Nicola Mining was based on a silver mine that we owned and the mill. And we put the silver mine into care and maintenance because in 2013, silver was, at that time, it was $14.68 an ounce. The Canadian dollar was $1.05 to the US, and it cost us $12.50 to mine. So we're making $1.50 an ounce. It's a high-grade silver mine located 90 minutes from our mill. We feel pretty confident that silver will stay north of $25 US. And at today's rate, at $40, it's well above $50 Canadian. So we will start also focusing on extracting value of our kind of forgotten silver asset. The market's really focused on our copper and the mill, but mark my words, 2026 will be a coming out of our silver asset as well.
I've seen companies in the silver space really perform for shareholders, not in production at all, don't have a mill, and they've hit $10, $15, $20 a share. You're trading today at 82 cents Canadian, which is up 11 cents from yesterday, I might add, and it's still early in the day. And you have an analyst giving you a price target of $1.05 Canadian, which is at 75 cents US, which you've already surpassed. I would think, especially with your care to not expose your shareholder base to dilution, that price target is extremely low. And I'm speculating here. We are. How would you respond to that?
It's a very insightful comment. Look, I was a Wall Street banker, so I know how bankers also think conservatively. And if you're an analyst and you believe that the true value of a stock is $5, but the share price is trading at 50 cents, why would you put out a price target at $5? You're better off putting price target at 75 cents, $1.50, $2, and along the way, you're right every time. But if you put out a price target of $5, you're only going to be right once. And as an analyst, it makes complete sense to put out price targets that slowly go up in value, because every time the company reaches that valuation, you've been correct. I love sports, right? It's better to, rather than having one home run, you're better off having 25 hits in a row, because that's going to win you the game. And as an analyst, I completely get the fact that they go up 50 cents incrementally at a time, because there's no benefit for them to put out a share price of $2 right away, because until it gets to $2, they haven't been correct yet. That's just Wall Street 101 analyst behavior.
Bell Canada, 6 new data centers in BC alone. How do you see your assets positioned to benefit from this broader electrification boom that's pretty much going insane right now, especially with the addition of AI ultimately in everybody's life?
I'll say this, there's a lot of empirical graphs right now and data that show that gold has outperformed junior gold miners. I was at a round table and I was asked the question, do you think that junior mining companies are going to catch up to the larger companies, or to the price of gold? My answer was no, because I think that as an asset, if you look at the value of gold, you also have to look at the complexities of getting permits and mining and the length of period it takes to have good drill results to become a cash flowing entity. So I think that the real value in, for example, nickel benefiting from data centers or high gold prices, or the fact that we're actually in production in precious metals. But I really got to highlight this one point is that there are very few copper assets in the world that are exploration phase. The Craigmont copper mine that we own is the highest grade copper mine in history in North America. What is a key point about this is that it was the highest grade major copper mine in history in North America. We're doing exploration, but it already has a mine permit associated with it. So it's already a mine. So if you think of the 12 to 15 years that it takes to get a mine into production, we kind of mitigate that speed in the fact that we already have mine permits associated with it. So now it's more a proof of concepts. And the entire program of our copper exploration this year is vectoring towards a pore-free system. We haven't released results yet, but we certainly have vectored towards a pore-free system. And I think that will be reflected in our stock for the simple reason that the market is becoming more and more savvy. The market is starting to understand, investors, including retail investors, are starting to understand the importance of how close a company is to cash flow. Because it's like the Lassonde curve, right? Where you get to a certain point, and then when you start applying for your permits, the share price goes down. This is a company that has no requirements to file for all its permits because we have them. We have a silver mine permit, we have a mill permit, we have our bulk sample permit on our Dominion project, and we have our mine permits for our copper project. So this is a fully permitted company here that will certainly reap the benefits of proving up and also producing.
Are all these factors, in your opinion, responsible for the uptick we've seen in just the last week with Nicola Mining?
There's two things about me is that I build companies. So I don't get too worried about the share price. And there are a lot of junior mining CEOs who I talk with who believe that they're precious metal experts and can accurately predict where gold is going to be in 6 to 8 months. And I work for a well-known Wall Street bank as an investment banker, and I don't make those predictions. Our entire focus is to be profitable at low metal prices. And why the share price went up, and I was asked by a shareholder today, like this morning, the shareholder asked, hey, why do you think the share price is up then? And I said, well, I think it's because more people were buying than selling. And those are things that we can't control. What we can control is the success of our operations, execution, and hopefully will continue. And it's going to get reflected in the market. The beauty of the markets are they're fluid, they're efficient. And as we become more and more profitable and we morph into, as you mentioned, from a junior to a mid-tier, that's all going to get reflected accurately in the share price. So I think we're at the beginning of a good run. Why the share price went up or down today, that's not something that really concerns me. What concerns me is executing on what we say, what we're going to do.
Perfect answer. In fact, I've never heard it before. In all my years, nobody's ever said that. Wonderful. Kudos to you. You and I are going to be talking for quite some time, but let's say we're sitting down in mid-2026 next year. What will success look like for Nicola Mining in a year?
Yeah, that's a great question. As a company, we have pretty clear vision as to where we're going. Now, that doesn't mean that you change direction sometimes because opportunities always come up, but I would say in 12 months from now, we'll show the market very clearly that every quarter by quarter that we're executing on what we said on our operational revenues. We will execute on the exploration of Craigmont. I think the big surprise or that the jack in the box that people aren't aware of or haven't anticipated is the value that we're going to show of Treasure Mountain because silver has been hot. We haven't had really news on our silver exploration over the past 12 months, but what I will tell you is that behind the scenes, we've been actively reviewing the project. We've been working on it. We'll be working on it all winter. And we have said to the market, if silver is steady above $25 US, we'll review the reopening of our silver mine. If you go back to 2012, Coeur invested $5 million at a $200 million valuation because they like the backside of the mountain. Now, we will be doing exploration, including drilling. We've done all the geotechnical work. We've done mapping. We will do some more work, but we will be drilling next summer on the backside. We'll look at reopening the silver asset. Dominion will be producing for Dominion next year. So this time next year, good copper results, steady cash flow, upside on Dominion, working with our partners, and huge silver upside along with our copper upside.
And one final question, maybe I should have asked a little bit earlier, but when you invest in projects that could go into production hypothetically within 2 years, could that be anywhere in the world, or are you going to stay focused on BC?
That's a great question. And I'll say this, everything we do is in BC. And I invest in other junior mining companies. Like I invest in all different opportunities, including crypto and mining. But what I don't like is I can never understand when junior miners have projects in Quebec, then something in Peru, and then something in Manitoba or Saskatchewan, something in Mongolia. Like if you're not a major, like you need to be focused. You need to focus on synergy. So every step we do is synergistic. Every step we do adds to the value of combined entities. So having something in Saskatchewan or Montana is not going to feed our mill. It's not going to help our permitting or the power that we have with the Ministry of Mining in British Columbia. I rarely talk about this, but I tend to be very academic in the way I do things. And so I also have a master's diploma in Indigenous law. And so these are things that in dealing with the ministry, because it helps when you're talking about UNDRIP, when you're talking about the proclamation of Canada, our constitution, and we're dealing with the ministry, these are all things that we can use as a company to help with the permitting process, or our relationships with our First Nation partners. We run a gravel pit and a rock quarry in a partnership with First Nations. And so it doesn't make sense for us to step outside of the relationships that we've developed with the communication that we have with the government. To start something completely new is not something within the realm of Nicola Mining. We're going to be a BC-focused project, small project facilitator, and we can bring these projects in under one umbrella. That wouldn't work if it was outside the jurisdiction.
Peter, I think that's the kind of focus that any savvy investor would want to hear, period. There's nothing more that can be said. It's been a pleasure chatting with you on our first interview. I look forward to a follow-up in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much for joining me today on the program. We appreciate your sponsorship.
Thank you for having us.
I've been speaking with Peter Espig, President and CEO of Nicola Mining, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange as NIM, and in the U.S. on the OTCQB as HUSIF. With near-term cash flow from its Merritt Mill, exploration upside at Dominion, Craigmont, and Treasure Mountain, and a strong focus on shareholder value, Nicola Mining is positioning itself as one of the standout juniors in the sector. Go to the company's website, nicolamining.com. You've been listening to the Ellis Martin Report and Money Talk Radio. Nicola Mining is a paid sponsor of the Ellis Martin Report.